You know that feeling when you're in a room full of people and everyone else seems to be talking effortlessly, but you're just there, quietly noticing everything. Not zoning out, not distracted. Just watching. You catch the small shifts in tone when someone changes their story halfway through. You notice who's trying too hard to be liked, who's holding back, who's slightly uncomfortable but smiling anyway. It's like you're reading something beneath the surface that no one else seems to mention. And sometimes, people assume things about you because of it. They think you're shy or distant, or maybe even uninterested. But that never quite feels accurate. Because you're not disengaged. If anything, you're more engaged than most. There's a certain kind of person who moves through conversations this way, observing first, speaking later, or sometimes not at all. And it often gets misunderstood in a world that rewards quick responses and constant expression. But there's more going on here than people realize. People who watch more than they speak aren't just quiet, they're operating differently psychologically, even neurologically. And once you understand what's happening beneath the surface, it stops feeling like something to fix and starts making a lot more sense. There's a concept in psychology called high sensory processing sensitivity. It's not a disorder or a flaw, it's a trait. People with this trait tend to process information more deeply. Their brains don't just skim interactions, they analyze them layer by layer. It's why you might notice subtle emotional cues that others miss. A slight hesitation before someone answers, a shift in posture that signals discomfort, a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. Your brain is constantly gathering data. And here's the thing, this kind of processing takes time. While others are speaking quickly, reacting in the moment, your mind is still absorbing, interpreting, and connecting dots. It's not that you don't have anything to say, it's that by the time you're ready to say it, the moment has often already moved on. Neuroscience adds another layer to this. Research on the brain's default mode network, the system involved in self-reflection and internal processing, shows that some people naturally spend more time internally simulating, reflecting, and observing. Their mental activity is less about immediate reaction and more about understanding context. So while someone else might jump into a conversation to fill space, you're unconsciously mapping the entire interaction. You're asking questions like, what's really being said here? Why did they react that way? What's the dynamic between these people? And all of this happens quietly, without effort. It's not something you decided to do. It's how your system is wired. But this way of being doesn't just come from biology, it's also shaped by experience. A lot of people who tend to observe more than they speak developed this pattern early in life. Maybe you grew up in an environment where speaking freely wasn't always safe or welcomed, or where being attentive to others' moods helped you navigate situations more smoothly. Over time, your brain learned something important. It's better to understand first and express later. So you adapted. You became someone who reads the room before entering it, someone who listens between the lines, someone who notices what isn't being said just as much as what is. And eventually, that adaptation stopped feeling like a strategy. It just became who you are. But here where it gets misunderstood. In a culture that often equates confidence with visibility, speaking up, being heard, taking space, quiet observation can look like hesitation or insecurity from the outside. People might think you're holding back, when in reality, you're holding awareness. And it's important to say this clearly. Neither way is better. There's nothing inherently superior about being the one who talks the most, just like there's nothing lacking about being the one who observes. There's simply different ways of engaging with the world. Some people process externally, they think by speaking. Others process internally, they understand before they express. Both have value. But when you're someone who leans toward observation, there's a subtle tension that can build over time. Because while you see more, you often say less. And that creates a kind of quiet paradox. You might understand people deeply, but feel like you're not fully understood in return. You might notice emotional undercurrents in conversations, but struggle to find the right moment to voice what you see. You might even feel a sense of distance, not because you're disconnected, but because your experience of the moment is so layered that it's hard to translate it into simple words. That's the hidden cost. But there's also a hidden strength. People who observe more than they speak often develop a kind of clarity that isn't loud, but it's precise. They're less likely to react impulsively, more likely to pick up on patterns, more aware of inconsistencies. And when they do speak, it tends to carry weight. Not because they're trying to impress anyone, but because they've been paying attention the whole time. Still, it's easy to question yourself in a world that moves quickly. To wonder if you should be more outspoken, more immediate, more visible. But your pace isn't a flaw. It's a different rhythm. You're not slow to respond, you're thorough. You're not quiet because you have nothing to say, you're selective because you see more than most people realize. And that doesn't make you less. If anything, it means your experience of the world is richer, even if it's harder to explain. So if you've ever felt out of place because you're the one watching instead of talking, there's nothing wrong with you. Your mind is doing exactly what it learned to do: observe, understand, and make sense of complexity. And that has value, even if it's not always visible. Because not everything meaningful is loud. Some of it is quiet. Some of it is internal. Some of it looks like someone sitting in a room, saying very little but understanding almost everything. And if this feels familiar, if you've recognized yourself somewhere in this, there's more to that pattern than just silence. There's a whole way of experiencing the world that most people never stop to question. And once you start noticing it, you start seeing yourself a little differently.